Hey, Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today on Alpha Commission, of course, we're going to go over the green in the charts. I do want to just comment on that this is a different Luna, which is blowing up on your screen right now. And so you do see Luna Part 2 basically displacing good old Lunch, that completely failed project, which has been pumping basically on the ground bones of all the people that it absolutely crushed and bankrupted, put into ruin, all of those poor innocent people, thanks to Do Kwan's incredible negligence. And Luna 2 is quite a different project. You can't judge it necessarily the same way that you could judge Lunch. This does give us a little bit of a clue that the Luna family will be trying very hard to recover their reputation in the next cycle. Personally, in my opinion, they are damaged goods. I'd rather be looking at ecosystems like Atom. Atom is doing incredible things. That is a lovely ecosystem with tons of potential, having upgrades on their way, lots of building. And they just deserve as much love as Luna is getting. But unfortunately, there seems to be kind of a meme, kind of concept pushing these things forward, as the communities are basically merged with like a meme coin community plus the old believers, and they are going to put their passion in the future. So let's see what happens. For me, I just don't have a great feeling for Luna. I'd rather focus on great projects rather than projects that have absolutely destroyed and ruined entire livelihoods, caused, basically suicides and deaths, and may have a lot of criminality potentially linked to it. Moving on to the charts, we are just taking a look at Bitcoin. Just a pump, we did have this incredibly bearish candle the other week. I'm actually on the 2 week right now, and you can't see us just trying to recover some of that. It is freaking people out. The reason why I'm zoomed out on the 2 week is just to give a perspective. We're just at the bottom here, guys. So, we could go lower. We have this bear flag that you can see on the 2 week. Another reason to put it on the 2 week is that you can see these bear flags just kind of popping out at you, right? And so there is the danger that we could fall lower. There is still a macro downtrend. And guys, like I said in just about every video leading up to this one, we don't have any confirmation of a bottom or bottom pattern. And so, while a lot of people are trying to declare that this absolutely is the bottom, that just is not confirmed. And we do want to be on the lookout for what's going on Tuesday, the CPI data, which will give us an idea of inflation. And then, of course, on the 21st, we should have Jerome Powell speaking and giving the Federal Reserve statement regarding how much they'll increase in terms of interest rates. And if it's over what the market expects, then we'll probably dump, and if it's under what the market expects, then we'll probably pump. And of course, on Tuesday, the CPI data is going to just, make that a very volatile moment as well. So these next 2 weeks really are going to control the destiny of this month, and whether or not Bitcoin kind of finds its footing, or whether or not it continues to plummet. Now, there are a lot of things up in the air, so I'm just going to keep this simple with that analysis. But you understand that there's a lot more to consider, including the potential recession and reevaluation of the entire stock market pricing, perhaps in 2023. But for now, we're seemingly finding a bit of stability in the markets. and let's hope that we can hold on to that. It would be nice to have some upside for once. You do see this is a dramatic period of down, and it would be nice just to get one of these nice pumps right to the upside. So I'm zooming out for your perspective, guys. I did make a basically a very long video yesterday, which I'm just going to leave as the default on this YouTube channel, building up credibility, showing the calls that I've made in the last 1 year, right, as we've been talking here on Alpha Commission, basically describing all of the big moves that we've basically gone over from the Pico top to what's currently the Pico bottom. Dot dot dot. Watch this space, right? Because you never know. And best case situation, we're flooring. Worst case situation, there's a global financial crisis or blah blah blah, right? And something just kicks the legs out of the stock market, and then the stock market drags crypto down. Even though, in my assessment, crypto pretty much wants to bottom. It's you're looking at almost all of these altcoins. I mean, it's very easy to drop another 20 to 50% in crypto. That's not difficult to do at all. But what we can say is that, we've basically covered our butts, right, during the top 1/3. We've protected our capital in the middle 1/3, and whether this is the bottom or whether we have a little bit more ways to squeeze out to go, in the grand scheme of things, we've done an extremely, extremely good job over here at Alpha Commission to protect our viewers, not shilling anything, not charging them $1, not doing anything, corrupt or suspicious or, out of mixed interest, just solely focused on protecting people's butts at the top, right? Helping them make a little bit of money in this consolidation zone and in this consolidation zone, and then helping them protect their capital by calling out the high likelihoods of these falls. And guys, I just want to mention something to make it crystal clear to those who don't understand these type of things, which is that only idiots call only up. Only idiots call down only, right? Only complete fools are perma bears or perma bulls, or they just choose one direction and say price action must go in that direction. I'm calling it. Like, we're going there, right? We're going to the moon or we're going to hell. I called it, right? And then they have superior bragging rights. Guys, the only traders that you want to be listening to are guys who tell you the likelihood, the probability of going up versus the probability, the likelihood of going down, using various models, using various patterns, using various logics in order to understand, right, why those likelihoods may exist, and then, of course, letting you use your own brain to decide if you would like to take that 70% likelihood to the upside versus the 30% likelihood to the downside. And there may be other factors that you're aware of that perhaps the YouTuber or the analyst just is not aware of, which maybe made you side with the lower likelihood outcome. For example, maybe you understood that interest rates were going to be increased at a time when there was a 30% chance to the downside based upon a pattern. Well, that interest rate increase could be what tips the scales to go down, even though there was a hypothetical 70% chance to break to the upside on, for example, a descending wedge, right? So, guys, like, we have to use our brains. We're going to be clever little alpha monkeys. We're not going to just pretend that when you make a call, it has to be one direction. You are using likelihoods, you are using probabilities, you are giving the conditions right? And then attempting to define the confirmations for either upside or downside, because both likelihoods do exist. They are not both equal, but they both exist, sometimes with very similar likelihoods. And so the key issue is, what is a confirmation, right? What are the conditions that need to be met in order to move up or move down, right? Or perhaps continue to consolidate sideways. And so that is what trading is about. It is not about calling up or down. And while people are very lazy in this industry and they're very lazy thinkers, they just want people to tell them, is it going up or is it going down? That's definitely not what this channel is about. I'm not here for the lazy thinkers. Any of you watching this show is because you are bright people, you are intelligent people, and you're looking for something to think about as you manage your money, as you manage your financial risk, and as you consider your investments and your trades. And so I'm proud to have you along with me. Now, guys, would you have liked to bought at these locations, on the crypto history, right? If we take a look at Bitcoin, just moving it back to the 2 week, just to get a big picture perspective, would you have liked to bought at these locations? And yes, there is a reason why I'm marking out this location in advance, because we can just do some projections about what's possible here. The probability of this, and whether or not this is similar to what's happened before, and what would be the conditions and confirmations of that, because that's how I roll, guys. I'm not going to tell you up or down. I'm going to be right because of my confirmations and the conditions that I set while calling both up and calling down, but requiring conditions to be met and confirmations to be put in order to conclude the trade, right? If conditions aren't met, you're still correct because you assigned those conditions. So let me ask you, if you were looking at this and if you would love to have bought in either at these dotted lines or at the thick yellow lines, what are the conditions that you would have set as an intelligent person? What are the confirmations that you would like to have as an intelligent person, knowing that nothing is perfect and that you'll never have 100% assurance in anything associated with risk, and that risk is why trading and investing is profitable, because there is risk involved, right? And so people looking for those 100% easy answers of up or down, of course, they are just fools. They are idiots, and we are looking for, intelligence. We are looking for nuance. We are looking for conditions and confirmations. Well, let me show you one set that I think would be very valuable to you. And of course, that's the good old RSI. Now, if we take a look at the 2 week RSI on the good old Blix, that's BLX, that's the symbol for this chart, right? That's the symbol for this Bitcoin chart, the BLX on the 2 week. That's the Brave New Coin Liquid Index for Bitcoin. It just shows the longest history that I can find for Bitcoin on TradingView. And so we have the most amount of data. We have over 10 years of data to work with, all the way back here since 2011, right? So a solid decade. And over a solid decade, there were basically one, two, three, four key points that you could have bought in just to have changed your life completely. And guys, what does it look like? What do these setups look like? Something very similar to what we're putting in right now. Isn't that correct, Alpha Fam? I mean, you guys can make this assessment on your own, but these are the conditions that I'm showing you that have been incredibly valuable to people in the past. And what is that condition? That condition is the RSI on the 2-week chart going from the absolute top at some point and then having worked its way all the way down to my green line, which is a diagonal. It's not a specific horizontal on the RSI. It is a diagonal to the downside. This is a sloping, a trend that we have here over the last 10 years. And of course, hitting that maximum low the first time and then the second time set up a trend which was followed by the third time and attempted by the fourth time. You can see that in the last couple cycles, we have actually, or I should say it's actually just the last cycle, we not only didn't completely bottom when we reset, but we also didn't hit the absolute top, which we've hit here, 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 and then we just barely missed it. And so what happened during those periods? Well, basically we had a rounding. We started to have a rounding, and so this was actually a very weird moment. This drop right here probably shouldn't even exist. That's the COVID dump, right? And then this rounding up here was actually the rounded top that we had, whereas in the past we've always had blow off tops, right? Just skyrocketing prices on Bitcoin that have just shot up to heaven like a dagger to the sky. Well, we had a rounded double top on Bitcoin in this last cycle, and so we didn't reach the top of our trend line, which should go along with expectation of a rounded top, right? And so, guys, like we don't have to reach the absolute top or the absolute bottom for this, theory to work, for this concept to be valid, because there might be something weird going on in the charts that we should just consider to be something just different, right? Just different than usual. And so, what we do see here is that we have in fact basically gone from a rounded top with a small gap, and so we are missing one condition, and then we have basically gone to the bottom of the line where we didn't quite touch the bottom. And see, this is why I haven't been able to really just pin down, are we at the absolute bottom or not? We never tagged this green line perfectly. If you look at other time frames, we have, though. So this is still in a good area, just like this top is still a valid top. It's quite obvious that Bitcoin topped, even though it didn't meet the condition of tagging this number. If we were looking at candles instead of just a line graph, this probably would still be considered within a zone, and similarly so would this bottom. And so we can at least put the dotted line at the bottom here, which lines up with this kind of gap that we had during the COVID bottom, and then of course this nice perfect touch here in 2018, and then of course we actually broke the line in 2015 with that during that scary dumps, right? And then during these highly volatile times, and of course the tone was set back here in 2011 for those bottoms. And so whenever the RSI was under this white EMA line, right, you can see the white line above this green line. As long as we are touching or getting quite near this diagonal, then that was usually a cue to consider to buy in. And we are doing that right now, Alpha Fam. We are doing that right now. In fact, that was back when we bought, when we were buying the Pico bottom of this consolidation range. We don't know if it's the absolute bottom on the market. This thing could dip lower. We've seen it happen before, but how much lower would it dip given this 10-year trend? We don't know, because Bitcoin has never been in a global financial crisis that also had the Federal Reserve's hands cuffed, right? Where they can't just give out stimulus left or right the way that they cannot do today because of inflation concerns. And so, because of these macroeconomic constraints, if there is a global financial crisis, we could see something very unusual. We could actually spike down here, and that's why I consider to leave open the possibility to buy at 8,000, 10,000, 14,000, 16,000. There's still the possibility, Alfam, that something could go horribly wrong in the world and then we breach this line. But if the best case scenario is happening, then most likely we are probably going to enter. And again, there's the word probably, because we deal with statistics, we deal with probabilities, and we deal with conditions that need to be met, right? We're not idiots, right? We're not just saying up only or down only or just making some directional calls. We're making intelligent probability calls that require conditions and confirmations. And then what is the confirmation? The confirmation is this hard yellow line where if we do end up rising above our white EMA line, again, this is the 2-week chart on the BLX, the Bitcoin liquid index, which you guys can download at TradingView. You guys can see this chart for yourself and chart it up your own way. But once we break above that white line, sit on it nicely, or launch off of it nicely, I should say, right? So you see how we broke down here, popped up, we kind of made a higher low, came off of that white line, and then the rest was history. The rest was a bull run. Same thing here, touched the bottom line, broke above the white EMA, kind of just held on to it like Tarzan swinging from a tree branch, and then swung ourselves up in the air, and the rest was history. It was a bull run. So guys, what we're going to be looking for is to see if we can, if we're not going to make bullish divergence and making a lower low on the price, and then having a higher low on the RSI and making some type of bullish divergence, at least we're going to be looking for, the RSI to be making a higher low, preferably above the white EMA line, and then to start launching off of it. And then that's where we're going to establish our confirmation, right? Because we're using probabilities with conditions, right? And confirmations, right? And now it's up to you. It's up to your risk management whether you'd rather take the high risk of just the conditions being met, but not the confirmation being met, or if you're a conservative trader who understands there could be deeper risk that we could break below this green line, right? Just like we did over here, where, if you wanted to take this type of a risk based play, just based on the conditions, maybe you'd actually prefer to have a confirmation if you're a more conservative trader, and then you could wait for this yellow bar to basically be established, which of course I'll keep you guys updated on, AlphaFam. But depending what type of a trade portfolio you have, right? What type of trade portfolio, what type of risk management you have in your mind for yourself. We are in this potential area where we could start seeing a confirmation of this signal at any time. Now, if we just do a measurement of how long it took for these confirmations, it took 180 days here. How about this one? It took 160 days. How about this one? It took 119 days. How about this one? It took 112 days. And so what you could expect, right? What you could expect is, first of all, these timelines are getting shorter and shorter as you go forward. So perhaps we could expect at least, 100 days, right? At least a solid 3 months that you most likely have time to be making your decision about getting into the markets. And the only thing that you have to understand is there is the likelihood of spike ups in price during that period, and you may feel really bad missing that price action before entering on a confirmation, but that you would not be sorry if you just entered in a confirmation. And to get a better view of this, let's go back to the price chart and you can just take a look at this. Yes, if you were going to go with a risk-based portfolio and you decided to enter here, then congratulations. You would just have to know there was a possibility you could dump all the way back down to zero. Nobody knew what this was about. But hey, if you bought in on the confirmation, this was an extremely good area to get into Bitcoin, and you still got a nice 26,000% return on Bitcoin, having entered on the confirmation versus the far more risky conditions, right? So conditions versus confirmation, and same thing here. The conditions being met is essentially the exact same price as the confirmation, which came back to confirm it, but there was a run up in between that you would have been feeling really bad about missing, and that was a 45% increase in Bitcoin's price, and people would have been really, really sad to have missed that. Oh my god, I missed a 45% move. I'm feeling suicidal. I missed that green candle. Well, guys, it came back and you were still at a relative value to be able to capture an 8,000, essentially 8,400% move on Bitcoin. And then what do we see here in 2018 and 2019? Yes, you could have bought the absolute Pico bottom like we attempted to do over at Alpha Commission, right? Knowing that there was a risk that you could potentially have more downside. Of course, we used other indications and we used local higher lows on the daily in order to confirm our buy-ins. We weren't just blindly catching a falling knife. We used sound trading principles in order to catch that low. And yes, you can actually catch those risky areas using those type of daily and a sub-daily principles as long as you're ready to get out of the market if it does collapse on you. But if you had just waited for the confirmation, you would have not been that much worse off, right? So yes, you would have missed this one run up of about 30%. Right? And you could feel quite sad. Oh, I missed that 30% run up. I feel so horrible. Man, I'm such a terrible trader. These guys who got in here, they got the absolute bottom. I'm nothing compared to them. No, no, absolutely not. You got in here on the confirmation and you did a great job. You got a 300% run up to the top of this mid-cycle market, right? This was a mid-cycle. And then, of course, we had the COVID dump. And yes, somebody could have bought on the COVID dump, right? They could have bought at that Pico bottom when oil and gas was $0. They were actually giving it away for free. They were giving away oil and gas for free, whereas today we're like $100 per barrel, right? And yes, you would have missed if you had waited for confirmation, you would have missed a 155% run up. But guys, you got in on a confirmation and nobody knew what was going to happen in the world at that time. That's why this is a dashed line. This is the high risk play, the highest risk play you can possibly take in terms of a holding position. And yet, if you got in on the confirmation, you would have had a 600% run up. Guys, that is incredible. It makes you totally forget about this little deal here. And so, what if we're seeing something very similar, Alpha Fam? What if we basically had that moment where I did recommend us to buy in based upon, let's go to the daily, right? Let's go to the daily. And so, of course, I did not have you buy that candle, right? But we did buy into this candle right here, and we did buy into this candle, and we did buy into this candle, and those were amazing plays up to this top here. Of course, that's using daily trading, but I'm trying to give you a macro perspective here so that you don't feel bad if you happened to miss that move. Okay, guys. Yes, that was a bull run of a nice 36 to 40% of Bitcoin, it was a bull run, not a bull market. It was a bull run. Whether we have a bull market, a continuation after a confirmation, that has yet to be seen. We have not confirmed yet, right? Eventually, someday we will, depending how the market goes. We haven't confirmed yet, and this could have been a false signal. In fact, all of these signals could have been false signals. How do we know that? Because we've had a low right here, right? Look at this. You see us floating right here? We had a signal right there, very similar to this one. How would you know that that was the real signal? It could have just been something like this, and then you dumped much lower. Or you dumped again, right? So how do you know which one is the real signal? That's why the dashed line is just conditions being met, right? It's not confirmation. And so, guys, you don't have to feel bad if you didn't buy in during this dashed line area because nothing is confirmed. This thing could just drop once again, and that's why this channel is about probabilities, it's about statistics, it's about conditions and confirmations. It's not about just brain dead, stupid Twitter, guru, coin army type thinking of up only or down only. I called this, I called that because I said it was going to go one way. No, no. An intelligent trader will tell you the probabilities of up and down, give you the stronger likelihood and their opinion on it, and the risk involved, as well as what the conditions and the confirmation might look like. And that's what we're trying to be about. And so if we do go over to where we are on the chart, then you can see that that was the risky play. We don't have our confirmation in yet, but guys, doesn't this look like we're getting there? Hmm? I mean, can you really expect the future to be significantly different than this history? If we do just crash all the way down to zero on the RSI, it would be completely unprecedented. And so that's why I can tell you guys. I mean, look at these zones, even that the RSI has marked out on itself. We have this top zone. That's why I call it the top 1/3, the middle, right? The middle third, and then the bottom third. And usually the bottom is higher than you think. Okay. And so, yes, my job was to protect your butts at the top of the market, to help you protect your capital and maybe make a little bit of money on some consolidation trades during these reaction rallies, during these relief rallies, during these, return to the mean, right? Mean reversion plays. And then, of course, it's up to you to decide your risk threshold and whether or not you just would need to see signals or whether or not you need to see confirmations for your own risk profile before you start to scale in. And when we throw on top of that, if I jump to the weekly, when we throw on top of that our EMA strategy, right? Where we can see basically if our EMAs are rounding down at the top and then flipping bearishly on the weekly, and then we would have to see them actually crossing bullishly over time, right? And so where they cross bullishly, whether it's sooner or whether it's later, right? That's when we would also get a second confirmation, because this would be our, this would be a confirmation, and then our EMAs crossing would be a second confirmation. And so if you're risk adverse, I'm going to tell you when our EMAs are crossing to the upside and when we have one of those RSI confirmation signals. And so for people who say that the RSI doesn't work, or for people who say that EMAs don't work, guess what, Alpha Fam? We're going to not only have avoided the, collected all, we're not only going to be able to have saved all our money at the top of the market because of the EMAs and because of the RSI, but we're also going to be able to get in at the absolute bottom or a relatively good bottom, right? Depending on your risk profile, thanks to the RSI, and the EMAs. Guys, I did produce a video yesterday, which is going to be just my introductory video. It goes over the successes that this site has had, that this YouTube has had ever since its inception a year ago. I go over a year of macro trading with you and the successes that we've had, as of course, I did call the absolute Pico top with certain conditions and confirmations that needed to be put in. And of course, the condition was met for the 70K top, which I had hypothesized, right? That was the likelihood of it being a top. And then the confirmation was, of course, the RSI reaching that red line, and then, of course, the EMAs crossing. And so my actual confirmation level was 59,000 because the risky play is to get out just upon the condition being met. A condition being met is the risky play, and if you want to get out on a confirmation, yeah, you're going to lose a little bit of profit, but hey, you're going to save your butt from falling all the way down here. And then, of course, when it came time to have a mean reversion on the chart, because you can't just go straight down, you have to have mean reversions, you have to have relief rallies, and then there's usually a period of consolidation going on, depending on your support levels. Then, of course, I recommended to buy in here, to buy in here, and to sell here. You can review that video. And then basically, I just gave a whole bunch of months of predicting that we would have downside basically to this level. And then I recommended to buy in here, to buy in here, to buy in here, and then to sell here. And now we are here today where we're basically looking for our next confirmation, or we're waiting for the conditions of rejection. And if you guys have been following this channel, then you know the condition of rejection that I have is approximately 22,000 to 23,000. If we get rejected from that 22 to 23,000 dollar area, then we'll basically have to reassess this possibly to the downside. But I mean, it could consolidate sideways, but a hard rejection right here would look very similar to this type of rejection, and I would just have to really take a hard look at the risk to continuation to the downside due to our overall macro bearish trend. But if we do get accepted above 22,000, then of course we could consider to talk about continuation to the upside and perhaps even confirmation of a macro turnaround on the RSI and perhaps even the EMAs, as some type of bottoming pattern perhaps could be put in. Of course, guys, my positions on these things. You guys know that I'm waiting to see what happens in September. I do think that we should have a good idea by perhaps October to the end of the year. And I do think that we'll get our macro confirmations by, as I've mentioned several times over many, many episodes, by Q1 2023, we should have our confirmations, whether we're going to enter in the bear market, of course, but, that we've actually confirmed a bottom or not. And then we could get a mid-cycle bounce, just like after we had a bottom pattern in 2018, we had a mid-cycle bounce, and then usually that's followed by a quarterly backfill, which just COVID happened to coincide with. And so that quarterly backfill often comes pretty close to the previous lows. And so if you do end up missing this bottom for whatever reason, health, maybe you didn't have money or whatever, just continue to save, because usually we have a mid-cycle bounce and then a quarterly backfill. It won't be as deep as you'd like. You're not going to get the prices most likely that others could get, but it should have some type of a quarterly backfill to check back to these prices before we end up having another cycle. And so it's likely to be something like this, right? Something like that, right? Where if this is the bottom, then we have a bounce, quarterly backfill, and then we go. And the wild card, if we avoid any chaos this year, then the wild card is going to be in 2023. If we have a global financial crisis, it could be the first time in Bitcoin's history where the quarterly backfill is deeper than the low. And that is possible if stocks have a super cycle meltdown, okay, which like Burry and some of these bank executives are basically calling for. But there's a lot of fear and FUD at the bottom of markets. And so, we don't really know what's really going to happen. We can analyze the stocks commodity super cycle, and I do assess that there is a very high danger of a strong recalculation of the pricing of the stock market, which could significantly drop the price of crypto. If it doesn't happen at the end of this year, then it could happen, end of quarter one, maybe summer next year in 2023, during this, after the mid-cycle pump. That could be just an incredibly dangerous reevaluation on the quarterly markets as quarterly reports come in of earnings. And if global earnings are just terrible, then the entire stock market will be reevaluated to the downside as a deepening recession across the world sets in. And that could be quite a big challenge. And you could see where this is basically the top of the market, and whereas this was a low, and this is a higher low, and then this is a top. Well, we could have a low and then a mid cycle, right? Lower high, and then we could have a lower low, because this could be a top to the market. You see what I'm saying? This pattern could get reversed, and actually the quarterly backfill could actually end up being the real low to this cycle before we head out. And so those numbers of like 10,000, they could still be on the table, even though we could have a mid-cycle before then, right? A nice mid-cycle run before then. And this is all just hypothetical. Of course, there will have to be conditions and confirmations to go along with that. But as long as those conditions and confirmations are met, then those are valid calls. Even if we say that there's the possibility of up and there's the possibility of down, we have conditions for both up and down. And so that's what we'll be parsing out as we navigate the treacherous path forward during an era of hyperinflation, of global banking and recessionary chaos, of potentially a global financial crisis, as we see very weird things happening in China and Europe, and basically in a lot of markets around the world. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please do watch the introductory video that I made yesterday, just going over the wins and the losses on this channel. I'll try to be as transparent as possible, so I did want to show you some evidence. That video is mostly for new users. Those of you who have followed me for a while, you probably know what we're about. You know how we've guided our people very safely. The Alpha Fam has been kept very safe during this just dramatic downtrend. And now we're getting to those areas where you kind of have to decide whether you want to pull the trigger yourself, in terms of buying whatever this or that asset, depending upon your risk profile. We don't have the bottom confirmations yet. I will keep you up to date on that. That was your alpha for the day. Stay safe and happy trading.